podcast. Glad to be here as always, and I hope that everyone out there is having a good day, and hopefully things are going well for you. This podcast, I'm going to be talking about a guest that we had on our show last night, actually, for raising awareness for bullying. This is one of the probably the most exciting guest as far as, you know, people that are in the real spotlight world that, you know, have big things going in their life. Actually, Steven was our first guest that I've had on the lounge that actually has a big name out there in the world. You know, he's wrote books. He's a publisher. He does acting. Just an amazing guy. His books focus on bullying itself. Hopefully, down in the description you'll find the links. The paperback books themselves are no longer available, but you can get them through Amazon. From what I've been reading on Steven's page. And I believe that you guys will hear more from him. And I'm also going to direct you to go listen to him on his radio show that he does as well. So down below in the description, you're going to find all that information. You're going to find his Facebook. You're going to find his podcast where you can go and listen to him. So we've got some information down below for you. And then I'm also going to let you hear part of the show from last night when he was talking. And I'm actually going to kind of filter it out that way. It's him that you're going to be hearing instead of me all over again. So let's go ahead and do that. And I want to just, once again, Steven, if you listen to this at whatever time, I want to again thank you for coming on the lounge and speaking on bullying. It really means a lot to us to have you. I'm excited to have you again. I'm excited to have a new friend. You know, there's several things that, you know, really make me happy about all of it. And so yeah, I just want to thank you because some people might not see it that we're out here. We're trying to make a difference in the world for bullying. You know, we can only do so much on our end, and then it's up to other people to act on that. So Steven does what he can do to get out there. He writes his books. He does his shows. He's a public speaker. He's got a name out there. Myself, I've been focusing on bullying here for over a year now, just trying to allow my voice to be heard, you know, and I don't know everything about bullying. There's a lot that I don't know, but there's a lot that that I do have knowledge on. You know, and like Steven said with his book, there's a lot of research involved in books too. So when someone reads a book, you know that there's some evidence behind what they're saying in the books. Unless, you know, it's a writer that just doesn't do research and they just want to put down the way that they feel about it. But then, you know, I don't know how well that would be for them. So anyways, Steven Tako, let's have a listen.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Again, my name is Steven Tako, and I'm the author of two books. One of them is called Motivated to Act, and it's a book that came out in 2012 that is geared towards helping people, generally teens and adults who have dealt with bullying at some point. And Motivated to Act helps people find the motivation to act on their true passions and dreams in life, and to get past some of the limiting beliefs, some of the things that have been programmed in us as we're younger. People saying you're no good at this and you're no good at that, and many people end up falling through a whole lifelong process of settling for mediocre relationships and mediocre jobs and because they don't really think that they could ever accomplish more than that they're not maybe even worthy of getting something more. So Motivated to Act, which is available on Amazon, that is something that covers those topics and helps people with all kinds of aspects of their life, including public speaking. And then my latest book came out just actually in 2018 called Junga the Dancing Yeti. And this is an anti-bullying themed series of books. This first one just came out. I'm working on the second one right now. And it is geared towards children because we found that even in preschool, kids are already learning about bullying and discrimination. And so these books are geared for them. And but when my first book came out, Johnny, that kind of thrust me into the whole anti-bullying movement. I really wasn't my intention, but the first chapter of the book is called "The Damaged Child," and it showcases some of the negative effects that I had to endure when I was a child, and how I process that as an adult. And next thing I know, people are hiring me to come out and speak at their events. I do have a Toastmasters background, so I've done public speaking, motivational speaking, but now I was able to add the anti-bullying into the mix. And I've gone out to schools and other organizations, and I've talked to teenagers, I've talked to adults, and I've coached people through my speaking engagements to help people overcome bullying. And then, of course, my talk show is called Tako Talk, and I've got about 30 episodes, I believe, on YouTube, where I've interviewed people who have been victims of bullying or people who are in the business of helping people overcome bullying, and even have one or two people who were the bully on the show. And that show is, again, all over YouTube, called Tako Talk. Encourage people to overcome all that negativeness and try to figure out how to live more productive lives.
And your books, let me ask you for other people, just in case, are your books available in the digital format as well, Stephen?
Yes, they are, actually. Amazon has them, and there's a Kindle version. I know that
nice.
There's actually a couple of different online versions of Junga the Dancing Yeti, but both books should be available. They definitely are online on the electronic form.
My second question is this: do you think that those that are bullies, do you think some of that is also from their childhood, the reason that, because I've always been about why do they do it? What drives these people to bully? I get it, but I don't get it,
So you're asking about the actual perpetrator, the actual bully, where are they getting it from?
Yes.
Well, in the field of bullying, you've got three different categories. You've got the bully victim, and the victim. So if we're talking about bullies, we've got then two categories, the bully and the bully victim. First, let me talk about the bully victim. The bully victim is the child who is being bullied themselves. Sometimes it's by an older sibling. Sometimes it's just not so much bullying, but a lot of neglect and abuse from parents or other guardians. And it also could be just the fact that this is a child who is being bullied and made fun of at school, and so they're the victim. And what they do is they turn around then and they become the bully to an even easier target.
Right.
So they're the bully victim. They're taking their aggression out on others. In fact, my next Junga the Dancing Yeti book will actually be on that topic. One of the main characters is going to be a bully victim. And so that's one of the reasons why they bully. They feel so out of control that they feel bad about themselves. And so they think that by bullying somebody else, that it's going to make them feel better, and it really never does. It's one of those endless searching. They keep they keep, like a drug addict keeps wanting to get that last high, just one more time, one more high.
Right.
And
right.
It always seems like maybe for a little bit it's okay, but it's never fulfilling. And
right.
so for the bullied victim, they never really truly feel good about themselves when they're doing the bullying. And so it's a vicious cycle for them. They're being bullied, and they turn around and they become the bully to an easier target. And neither way, nothing ever makes them feel better.
Right.
So then there's the actual bully, and that bully, oftentimes, they can actually come from a very high esteemed family, and they just truly think that they are better than almost everybody else. And so they have this attitude, and oftentimes they can go through their whole lives with that type of feeling about themselves, that they are truly superior to other people. And that's why a lot of those people grow up to be very pompous people in charge of academics at school or bosses, and they always have this type of feeling that they are the ones that are better than everybody else, and so they tend to bully people because it's kind of think it's their rightful place, that
right.
everybody else is kind of moronic, and they just will never be able to live up to their standards. When you and I were kids, we never had to deal with cyberbullying because there was no internet.
Yeah, exactly.
And people are so much bolder when they're sitting at home writing on their computer or on their tablet or whatever, on their phone. They become so much more emblazoned in sharing their attitude about things that it's something that is dangerous, because when you read something, and that's why cyberbullying is so dangerous. When you read something, you are hearing your own voice. And if you read something that's negative, and let's say if it's about you, that's
right.
cyberbullying. If you're reading something about you and you're reading it in your head, you're typically hearing your own voice. And that's dangerous because it's sending a message in your own voice that it kind of internalizes, and that's why it's so important to not even read it once you see where somebody is headed with something.
Right.
To not even finish reading it because it's all hurtful, and replying to somebody back is not going to solve that person's problem. When it comes to this person who wrote something on there, a lot of people, unfortunately, get their jollies out of the shock factor of things. So they just realize they don't really have anything really to contribute that's intelligible, and so they'll just write something, and they'll get their giggles out of writing something that's really ridiculous and shameful if you think about it. But they're looking for a shock factor because they know that it's going to rile all the people who are reading it, and that's really the only little level of power that they think that they have.
Yeah, and we try to tell people that, look, block these people. Don't give them the, because to me it's kind of like giving them the upper hand, and they know that. They know that. And I'm not innocent on that, because in the past I had read stuff. I get people that make these blind jokes, cracks at me. It's it's a form of bullying, but I got to where now I just ignore it, because it's really interesting what you said. When you read it, you're hearing your own voice, and that is so correct. And it to me, it just intensifies, makes it that much worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was in third grade. I write about this in my book, Act. I was a victim of just a lot of neglect, and in my class, I didn't have any friends, and there's a story that I write called The Rocket Ship, and in that story, I I ended up reading a bunch of things that people had written about me that were all negative, and here I am, this little third grade boy, sitting all by myself.
Oh my gosh.
In what I thought was supposed to be a really cool place, and I ended up sitting there reading all this stuff about me that was all awful and negative. And again, it was this little third grader who's hearing my own little voice, hearing all this negative stuff about me, and that sticks with you, and that damages people, because when you read something, people are very gullible anyway. When they read stuff, they tend to believe it.
Yeah.
And so reading all this stuff that is nonsense stuff, but it's written, and people tend to believe a lot of stuff that they read. So when you're reading something bad about yourself, isn't it easy to slip into that unfortunate state where you're believing this? You're believing that maybe you are a loser. You're believing that maybe you are ugly, or you're too tall, or you're fat, or you're whatever. Like you said, blind. You start hearing this and reading it. Hearing it is one thing, but reading it internalizes it so much more in your head because it's your own voice reading it.
Yeah, when I got bullied back in school, and what really didn't help was the fact that when I was a teenager, even before a teenager, I wasn't accepting who I was to begin with. I didn't want to be the blind kid. I didn't want to be the different person. And the first time I got bullied, they had wrote it on the chalkboard, blind boy, and even though there I was living, my childhood life, and it was already bad enough, that automatically would come up in my mind over and over. Even after the bullying stopped, it still messed with me for the longest time. And it's really interesting you brought that up, because I never once, not one of us ever really spoke on that. I like the fact that you've got knowledge on this, not because you went through it, obviously, but let me get your opinion on something else. Let's talk about school for a second here. And Sean, I know you're still there.
Oh yeah.
He can't hear you, but you can hear him.
Yeah.
So I'll relay the message. I'm sure he understands. In school, I always say that and maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, I would love to get your opinion. I always say the schools need to go back to the drawing board and do something differently, as far as,
Oh, I totally agree with that.
It's hard to understand every little detail that the school goes through, but I just feel like the opposite things happening here. Let's say that you was the bully here a second, Stephen, and I go and tell on you. They suspend you for a couple days, but then it comes down to eventually I'm getting homeschooled while you're still at the school. You're still doing what you do. Doesn't it seem like it's time for the schools to maybe not start over, but go back and do some planning and make things a little different? I mean, what is your thought?
Well, there are a lot of schools that are doing a lot of really wonderful things, and I think on the general level, people who go into the education industry go in with high expectations that they are forming the minds of these young children, and that they're coming in and they're really doing a good thing. They're typically good people that are teachers and people in the executive committees, superintendents and everybody that make up the schools have this thought that they're going to go in and see the positive change for children. And I think that so many schools, I'm thankful that so many schools have integrated a lot of anti-bullying types of programs. They bring in speakers like myself and several others that I know of who come in, and they have either one-time speakers or they have ongoing programs. They have all kinds of neat things that they do.
I wonder, Stephen, if
issues that I've run into when I'm talking to some people who are working in the school district is that they have a lot of kids in their class, and they tend to sometimes get a little bit overworked with the amount that's expected of them. They can't police the children. And here's one of the big problems, Johnny, is the parents of the bullies. The parents of the bullies are making it very challenging for the schools to do what they need to do. The disciplinary actions are very, very narrow these days. Back when you and I were kids, we would get a SWAT, and we would have to fear, like, oh my gosh, we're being sent to this office.
Yeah.
A SWAT, so we're going to try to be on a little bit better behavior because we don't want to get a SWAT.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I'm condoning teachers hitting children, but what I'm saying is that something has had to replace the SWAT, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what's replaced it, because so many kids are getting away with a lot of stuff still, and the problem with the parents of the bullies is when some of the counselors or teachers have come down hard on the children, trying to get them to behave better, you've got parents who come in here to the office and create holy hell for the administration.
Yeah, and I think
and refuse to believe that their child is doing anything wrong, and they're oftentimes the parents are the problems themselves, and it comes out of through the children, and then the administration is struggling with that problem. What were you gonna say?
Well, like you said, back then the SWAT worked. It worked. It was enough to let us know that, hey, don't be doing that, or you know what's going to happen. You know what
consequences.
Yeah. And, like you said, today, now they got all these rules. No touching, no, every time I always hear this, and I'm glad that I just don't automatically assume it, but when a kid, you hear about a mom spanked the kid, then you hear someone else making it sound like it was the worst thing in the world. Oh, that kid's been, and I'm not saying abuse doesn't happen. It does. But I think that it's over, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's
traumatized.
Yes.
Traumatized a bit. Yeah,
yes.
I had that situation happen. My son was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 years old. And I think he was about 5 years old, maybe 4 or 5. Anyway, I was in a store with him, and it happened to be like an education store. We can buy all kinds
of gosh.
things. And so my son would just start running. The door was open. He would run right out into the parking lot where cars could be driving around. And so with my son, I had to learn a lot of things. Instead of saying, Alex, stop running, I had to focus on telling him what to do. So
right.
Most people focus on what they don't want you to do. They'll say, stop running, instead of, Alex, walk.
Yeah.
Alex, stay still. But I do a whole seminar. On this, the whole huge philosophy that I'm a huge proponent of. It's so effective. The underlying message of trying to get people to focus on what it is you want them to do versus telling them what you don't want. Like, how many people say, oh, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get sick. Why are you saying I don't want to get sick instead of saying I want to stay well? I want to stay well.
Right. That's
People are constantly focusing on what it is they don't want. So
yeah.
if you're telling somebody, don't run. At a subconscious level, we filter out all the negatives. We filter out the don'ts. We figure out filter out anything that is going to be negative, like stop and halt, and don't do this and don't do that. If people could eliminate the word don't from their lives,
yes,
they would really have an eye-opening experience that they have to force themselves to really think about what it is that they want. So anyway, with my son, I would say, Alex, walk. And if I said stop, I wasn't sure if that was going to work or not. And I'd tell him what I really wanted him to do, and I wanted him to walk so I could catch up to him. And he understood that. And so he started walking, and then I was able to catch up to him. Well, I gave him a little spanking on his behind. Nothing vicious, nothing crazy. It was just to send a message to him. And oh my gosh, I had over the aisle, I heard, "Did you just hit that child?"
Oh my!
Yes, I gave my son a swat on his butt. We do not tolerate child abuse in this store.
Oh my gosh!
And I'll tell you one thing. I didn't say anything. We left that store, and I never once stepped in that store again. And ironically, about a year later, it went out of business.
Oh my goodness!
But yeah, so people have gone to the extremes. Some parents have to figure out ways to discipline their child, and in no way am I an advocate of harming your children.
Well, and
when you have somebody that doesn't understand, like my son was autistic. Certainly I wouldn't be harming him or dragging him with one arm or
yeah, of course,
slapping him on the face or anything like that, but it's the pat on the butt is something that he understands. It's more of a little message to him.
Yeah, I mean, it was effective. It was effective.
It was effective, yeah. My son and I, to this day, he's 22 years old, and we're extremely close and tight.
I'll tell you, I don't know the numbers exactly, and I'm gonna look, and I'll get back to you on it because I'm curious. But I know the numbers last time that I looked a long time ago, it was high, and that was for state workers and those that work for like family services and etc. Most of those that were telling innocent families that were saying they were abusive when they wasn't, most of them workers, they don't even have a child at all. So, and I'm not saying you got to have a kid to understand, but they go over the line, like you said, in the store.
Right.
But
it's a bit intense, and unless you really, if you identify, and you look and you see, okay, that child is being endangered. Then yes, you report something. You.
Oh, of course. I mean, if
that child has been left alone in the car on a hot day.
Yeah.
Or anytime being left alone in a car, a small child, that's dangerous. You do step forward, you intervene, you call the police.
Yeah.
Involved. But getting back to what you were talking about earlier is if a child is a bully, and then they end up going back to school, and let's say the victim has been victimized so much that they just can't even handle that school anymore, and then they have, and then they're being homeschooled. There's several aspects going on here. One is I'm actually a proponent of homeschooling. We did end up homeschooling my son from first grade all the way up until I think 8th grade.
Now, was that because of bullying or?
Well, what's that?
Was that because of bullying? Not to get into your personal, but
no, actually, it was because he was autistic.
Okay.
When we brought him to kindergarten, he actually was at the top of his class.
Right.
And you really you never want your child to be the top of the class or the bottom of the class.
Or at the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, top of the class, they're not being challenged enough. Bottom of the class, they're going to be labeled the slow kids, and they're more likely to get picked on and have feel bad about themselves because they're not getting it. They can't pick up on what's going on. And so anyway, so we decided to homeschool our son, and then he actually has done quite well. In fact, when he was 9 years old, the Neuropsychiatric Institute at UCLA officially reversed his diagnosis and said he was the first child to go through their program that no longer met the 4 criteria to be considered autistic.
Really?
He was like a text. He was a text case that they've used his case to do a lot of talks to the parents.
So they reversed it?
Very, very remarkable.
They reversed it? Is that what you said?
Yeah. When he was 3 years old, he was diagnosed at UCLA, and then when he was 4, we got into the Neuropsychiatric Institute program there, which is a 3-month-long program, 5 days a week, and then they followed up with them for after that, and met with them a couple times a year.
That is amazing. That's amazing.
9, they officially did a 2-hour assessment test.
That is awesome. That is really, really awesome to hear.
That is great news to hear.
Anyway, one of these days I want to write a book about that whole experience. But I think that, when kids are bullies, they really need a lot of work and counseling. And I'm thinking that maybe instead of, suspension is one thing, right? But if they're going home to an environment that's not really conducive to improving their behavior,
it's not going to fix it.
They come back to school again, and nothing's really changed.
Right. Right.
So just like when kids go to jail, not kids. When people go to jail, if they have some sort of rehabilitation program there, then when they go out of jail, they're going to be hopefully a better citizen. And so if there's some sort of rehabilitation program that can be at the schools where there's a counselor who, maybe will counsel these kids for even if it's like an hour a week.
Yeah.
Maybe they have to be set up. This idea is just kind of coming to me. Maybe some schools do it already. But wouldn't that be effective, rather than just suspending them for 3 days and then come back and then nothing's really happened?
I think so, absolutely. And I think that with you saying that, I remember me and Shauna, we spoke about this before on one of the hangouts that we're doing now. And I said that obviously you're never going to get rid of a bully. It's always going to be there in one form or another. So we need to learn to prepare people to be able to cope with things differently. Not saying, hey, you're being bullied, just put up with it. But if you can better understand how to handle a bully situation, just like you had just talked about a little earlier about telling people don't read it, because when you read it, you are really hearing your own voice. That is educational. That is the things that they need to hear. That's, to me, instead of just saying, well, we'll take care of it when it happens, or we'll deal with it when we get to that, across that road. I think preparing is also and maybe not a large proportion of it, but I think to prepare and to educate how to handle it, I think that would be somewhat effective as well. Like you said, counseling, would a bully like going through counseling? Probably not. But if he knew that it was just him and nobody knew he had a counselor or anything, and it was confidential, which, it would be, I would assume, I think that could be effective. I really do. So
yeah, I don't think, and honestly, to tell you the truth, when we had to get a slot when we were kids, it wasn't confidential. We knew that we were going up there.
Yeah, everybody knew about it.
Yeah, everybody knew about it. Even the people down the hall could hear the slot, right? So I also don't think that if a child is going to have to go to counseling because of their bullying, I don't necessarily believe that it has to be a whole hush hush secret.
I believe that everybody should know about it. Actually,
that, look, this person, Johnny is being, or not Johnny, Billy is being excused during the recess time here. He can't go to play recess, because he's got to go to the counselor, Mrs. Farmer, he's going to sit in here through the class. And in those classes, it can be about it could be about empathy, or it could be showing a video, about different colored skinned people and the effects that bullying has on other people.
I mean, honestly, I think that it would help if people knew, and even the bully knowing that people know. It's like, look, people know that I'm doing this. My gosh, now I look like a jerk, or
you look like you've got some, you've got issues, and that you can see, everybody can see that the school is doing something proactive, that they're going to, and that they take an active interest in helping this Billy, the bully, because Billy's got issues going on, and we don't know what we don't need to know what's going on behind closed doors in the counseling session.
Yeah.
But and somebody at the school, if they actually are somebody who's trained and knows what they're doing, because the wrong person could be doing more damage. So to a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe the best thing really would be to have a counselor who has. Maybe the school will get like a set of approved videos that can be showing empathy, and then they can ask some questions to see. Maybe they can see if there's some sort of trouble going on at home.
And what people need to really understand, Stephen, is that when me and you was in school, like you said, we didn't have to deal with the bullying nowhere near the way it is today, because I did a podcast a while back and I actually talked about it, and I can't remember the dates now, but I talked about bullying really picked up when Facebook and Twitter and other social platforms went public and was published. The cyberbullying really kicked in. I mean, it really went up the scale, and the desk was located to the right.
I think that bullying has always been there and will always be there.
Yeah,
it's part of human nature.
Yeah,
and so we can try to thwart the efforts of bullies, and we can help victims. But it's always going to be there in some form or another, because one bully gets cured from that issue, and then there's somebody else.
There's another one, yeah.
Issues, and they're going to be bullies for the next year. But the one difference really is the cyberbullying. But I'll tell you, I had a terrible time being bullied, and now it's so, because we all talk about it a lot more, and so maybe it seems like there's a lot more bullying going on, but I honestly think that the level of bullying really has not gotten any worse or gotten any better, that it's an individual type of thing. The only thing that they deal with now is the cyberbullying, which now extends past school.
Yeah.
Students are going to be going on Facebook, like you said, or other social media, and seeing that people are writing terrible stuff about them.
And the difference back then, you leave school.
Why they're reading it all is beyond me. I don't understand why they're doing this. And people are coming up with fake accounts, and then they're writing this and that, whatever. The poor kids are struggling trying to find out, well, who is this person? They don't even know who it is.
Yeah.
So,
and like you said,
sometimes, so it can be challenging, but when you start reading something bad about you, block that person.
Yep, just block. And I think that that's a good suggestion that we really need to put out there to people, is that that it's going to be something bad, no matter what it is. None of it's good. So, because you hear people say, well, I just wanted to see if they were going to say this, or if they were going to, maybe they were, not going to say it. So I wanted to see. Don't see. Like, just block it. Guys,
honestly, when Dylan was going,
drive really slow past that car accident because I want to see if I can see any mangled bodies sticking out of the windshield. And then when you do see the mangled bodies sticking out of the windshield, you can never get that image out of your head. So, really, was it worth it?
Yeah, exactly. Shauna, what was you? You were saying something about Dylan.
Yeah, when one of the kids that we were going through with the bullying situation with my son, he actually sent him a picture of a gun on Facebook and told him that he would be waiting for him if he stepped out of our house, that he was going to shoot him.
Oh my goodness. That's wow.
And I took his phone and everything up to Gallion Police Department and filed charges against the kid.
Picture of a gun on Facebook?
Yeah, he sent him a picture of the gun and said he was going to come kill him and everybody in our household. And I took his phone up to Gallion Police Department, and nothing was ever done about it. And he made that threat over Facebook.
Wow. That's horrible. That is horrible.
At what point now did the parents of the child get involved?
Well, I was told from Gallion Police Department that they were going to contact the child. They were going to contact the parents and let them know what was going on, and then they were going to send it over to the prosecutor for Crawford County and see if charges could be made, and nothing was ever done about it. I mean, I literally had to pull Dylan out of Gallion City Schools, and he now goes to Cardington to the Tomorrow Center, and he is doing so much better down there than he did here in Gallion. There's none of the problems we had in Gallion. He's an entirely different kid. He's almost back to the old Dylan I had before the bullying since I switched schools.
Yeah, and I agree with Steven that person needs some serious help. And I think, yeah, definitely. I just wonder, I don't really wonder, I mean, we see it. You said something very interesting earlier, Stephen, how you spoke about with the bullies and the parents. Sometimes these parents make it so difficult to even reach out and even try to help the bully because, I don't know what the real reason is, if they think that we're if their child's being targeted or what the case might be. But if you can't get them help, though, it's never going to, they're never going to stop. And then what do you get when they get older? What do they become as an adult? It's scary to think about.
It is.
Yeah. That's.
They see their son or daughter taking on their persona, and they think, "Oh, that's so cute."
So, guys, what I'm going to do is I haven't turned on chat yet. Well, it's on. I take that back. I just haven't pulled it up. I'll pull it up here while we're still speaking here. Just bear with me because, again, I use voiceover. So if you leave them or if you say something and you don't see me respond to it, just say it again. I won't mind. I understand. I missed it. I'm good at that because, well, you know how the chat can go on YouTube. Like if there's a lot of people talking, it just goes down the screen really fast. And with me using voiceover, which is where my phone talks to me, it reads it to me. So it's easy for me to miss the chat. So I'm not sure if Shauna has her chat. I don't think she's able to see her chat.
No, I can't see my chat.
But next time we do it, I'll try to set up to where one more person can see the chat with us, and then that way I can make sure, because I'm sure people would love to ask Stephen questions even about his books and stuff. And I tell you, I'm so grateful for having somebody that has a lot of knowledge behind this as well. And I mean that, Stephen. Like, I'm not saying that I don't know anything about bullying or Shauna doesn't know or one of the other loungers doesn't know, but you've wrote a book, and to write a book, you do research, you know, or at least I think you do. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you just knew it.
I actually had to. My publisher, when I gave the first draft of my first three chapters of my book, she was the one that said, Stephen, you got a lot of great information here on bullying. She goes, you had me going. I was ready to read more, and then all of a sudden you went on to something else. I need to put a lot more meat and potatoes of bullying because you have some great stories. And I love your insights, I love your philosophy. And she goes, but I need statistics and include stuff about cyberbullying. My book was a lot of, almost like an autobiography of part of my life. And so I never had to deal with cyberbullying, so nothing was about that in my book until my publisher told me I needed to go back and put all that in there. So
yeah,
I did have to do a lot of research.
You know, I do. I've put one course out so far on my my other site for goal setting and following through. And you'd said you talked about, you know, how it's hard for people to get out of the habit of, you know, like you something about your kid with running, you know, and people always thinking the worst of every situation. Oh, I'm gonna get sick. And you know, and I can't. I know this guy really well, but now the name tipped my tongue. I listen to him a lot. He did a podcast, and it was titled "What Is the Impossible?" And he had spoke about the mind, how for some reason people, instead of thinking positive, it's always the negative that takes over, or it's, well, I can't do that. That's impossible. I'm not able to do that. When really that's not the fact. It's just, yeah, I hear that all the time.
I'm talking about adults, but I don't want you to quit smoking.
Joanne was a single mom.
They're like, what?
And raised our 3 children on her own was a lot.
I don't want you to even internalize that you're a quitter. Okay, what I want you to focus on is what you really want. You don't want to quit anything. So,
had gone through some
healthier life. Okay, let's focus on that. You want your hands and your hair to smell better? Your fingers? You want to have all of the cilia, the nice, the hairs, you know, in your nose, in your throat, and all that to be nice and clear, and instead of being full of mucus. You want a healthier living and focus on having what it's going to take to have nice, clean, healthy lungs.
Yeah.
To be able to breathe a lot freer, and then stopping smoking is kind of like a side effect.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
If you just focus on quitting smoking,
well, that's funny because I'm sitting here smoking as he's talking about that.
I want to lose weight.
Yeah.
I want to have a healthier body. I want to learn how to enjoy exercise. I want to have the extra energy to keep with my kids.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I don't want to lose
Shauna just said it's funny, even that you're talking about that. Because you're talking about that, she's sitting there right now.
Nice.
You know, I must say though, I really, really enjoy your mindset on all this. When I did the goal setting, I know I'm off course here, but I get back on course. But when I did goal setting, when I did that course, you know, I talked about looking, you know, you got to stay consistent on the positive things that get you where you need to go. You know, it's if you got to write it down step by step, then that's what you got to do. But you do things that are positive, not negative. Not, well, I can't do that. Well, I'll never have a new car, or I'll never, that don't solve it. If you want it, why? I don't get why people do that. If they want something, don't say, well, I'm never going to get that. You need to be saying, what do I got to do to get it? What do I got to do to follow through with it to make it happen? But just your whole view on it and your mindset, the way you look at things, it just really it's amazing.
I told you, John, he's awesome.
If you could give advice right now, if you've got a teenager out there, a boy or a girl or a group of people that are they're too scared to go to an adult, what would you tell them, Stephen? What would you say to them right now if they're just in a dark place right now? They're scared, they don't know what to do or where to go. How do they rise up from that?
Very challenging if they don't have an adult in their life that they can trust in confidential information. Are you saying like a teenager out there that doesn't feel comfortable talking to any adult?
Yeah, that's because I've seen it where kids are scared to go to the adult because they're afraid it's going to get worse. That they're going to, So how do we encourage these situations to, how do we encourage those that are in that specific situation?
One thing is that I try to remind people is that everything in life is temporary. And, kids think that well, my life sucks, and this is horrible, my life is ruined, and I'm no good, whatever. And they think that, well, this is how my life is going to be. And I would say that there are so many of us, including myself, that were in that situation. One of my guests on my show used to cut herself because she said that was the only way that she could control pain in her life. All the other pain that was given to her was dealt to her by different people, and so she started cutting herself so that she could control some pain. And
did she do it on her legs, the inside of her legs? Because I knew someone that did the same exact thing. Okay, I didn't know if it was, this person didn't want anybody to know, so they would do it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
As we're adults, and we look back and we think, children do a lot of dumb things, and I use that word in truth because they're uneducated. They don't know what real life is like, and so if we can remember as a child that everything in life is temporary. If you are the biggest jock in school and all the girls love you and you're the best at basketball and football, and you got names on all the trophies and everything else,
it's going to come to an end eventually, right?
It's temporary.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're going to go to college, and all of a sudden like other people are going to look down and you're like you're a new kid, you don't have the reputation, or you're going to start some job, and all of a sudden people are going to look at you and they don't care less that you were the prom queen or prom king, because this is real life.
Yeah.
I was on a family or class reunion, and I've seen people that were like the biggest, most popular people in school who will just have like, unhappy lives because life never lived up to the life they had in high school. And so they just were never able to match that again. So those were like the glory days. Likewise, with people who were being bullied, people who were thinking horrible, thoughts about themselves because it's being drilled into them, and they're lonely and they can't trust any adult for whatever reason. This too is temporary. This is temporary in the fact that one of the things that most people who have been bully victims, most of them will find that once they actually get out of school, that life is so much better. They're not stuck 8 hours a day with these other immature students. And so kids tend to do dumb things a lot, as I mentioned. And when you get out to the real world, you realize that, well, of course, some people still, as adults, are doing some things.
I was going to say, yeah.
You have a lot more choices. You're not stuck in the chair. You're not with the teacher. You don't like your job? Quit. Go to another company.
Yeah.
You can't stand your coworkers. You talk to HR about it. And, if there is one, or touch your boss, and if you don't fix it, you quit. You go to another company where things are better. You don't have that. You don't often have that flexibility in school unless your parent is able to either homeschool you or take you to another school. But I have different thoughts on that. I try to, when I talk to parents, I try to encourage them to exhaust every possible way to help the child stay where they're at, in the school system that they're at. It doesn't always happen, as Sean can tell you. It doesn't always happen, and a lot of people have to take that approach to homeschool or to take it to another school. In one aspect, people will say that is running away from your problem. Not saying that happens across the board, but whenever you possibly can, please exhaust all avenues to try to resolve it so that you don't have to be the one that is being uprooted, moved off somewhere else.
I honestly can say the best decision I made was to pull Dylan out of Guyan City schools. The Tomorrow Center, where he goes to now in Carlington, they are wonderful. My child went from D's and F's to A's, B's, and C's where he's at now. When he left Guyan, he could only do basic math. I mean, he couldn't even count money. And now, he works 2 jobs. He works at Goodwill through the school program. He also works at the school during lunchtime in the cafeteria. And honestly, I never thought Dylan would be able to hold a job.
Yeah.
Before I took him out of Guyan. There was no way.
That Stephen had said, and I really like how you put that life is that is temporary. Things are temporary because, and real quick, Stephen, just in case, because this should not be beeping, but it is. If I do lose you, could we do this again and maybe even set it up a little bit better so that you can interact with chat and stuff? We could make this work out to where, because I know we've got an audience that wants to ask you questions. I just know it. My chat for me is not working the best because I can't see it. Would you want to do this again sometime before, just in case I do lose you?
Investigators also question gentlemen down the road a little bit, and we can do a little promotion and have people call in with your questions that you have to field some answers on your show.
How can they find? Let's also get these guys over to your show as well. Guys, and I'm going to get his links and stuff. Stephen, I'll even, if you don't care, I'll give my.
I've shared his links before in your chat.
Okay. She's shared it before. Okay, good. But I'll get you my email, and if you don't care, I'll get yours. That way I can get stuff and save it. And that there would be 2 guests.
Mine's really easy. My talk show, that last thing is Tako Talk.
Okay.
And Tako Talk is a show on YouTube. And then and I would love for people to check out my books on Amazon. Motivated to Act.com is my my first book, and junkieyeti.com is my second book.
Okay.
And I've got I've done like book signings, for both books.
That's amazing.
Yeti, I and it's actually really cute. The artist that I worked with retired from Disney. He was one of the lead visual artists for Disney's Aladdin.
Nice.
Job with Jungle Dancing Yeti.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to be promoting the heck out of your books and stuff here every time we do the Raising Awareness. We do it every Sunday. I try to, and sometimes what I call life, it happens, and I get out of schedule sometimes. I'm sure you understand that. You've been through the college world, I'm sure. So I always think I know what my schedule is, and then something happens. Before we lose you, is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners tonight about bullying? Whether it's a bully that might be listening or a victim that might be listening. What would you like to say, Stephen?
I would like to say when we help other people, it takes a lot of pittiness that we feel about ourselves away. It's just feeling bad about themselves. One of the best ways I feel is to turn around and dedicate your time to helping somebody else. There's always going to be somebody else who has it worse than we do. And so whether it's a dog at the shelter and you're here to go take your stray dog for a walk to help out the shelter, or whether it's to go and approach another child that looks like they're really having a hard time in life and actually offer face and sit with you and talk to them. We often get very selfish and caught up in our own problems and realize that, wow, our problem is the biggest thing going on in the world. And it really, it might seem like it is. It might seem like, wow, this is never going to end. But as I said before, everything is temporary.
So that there was the interview, the hangout that we had last night on Raising Awareness for Bullying. We definitely want to get him back to do some more reviewing with his views on bullying, because I mean he really he dove into just breaking down the different areas of bullying. He spoke about the victim, he spoke about the bully, he spoke about the different forms of victims and different forms of bullying. Just a lot of really good information there, and I'd like to get him back. I know, and I didn't realize it because I couldn't tell that the background was loud like it was with our other guests that we had, and I don't think they realized it neither. So, not a big deal, but we'll fix that next time. I didn't realize it. So hopefully you guys was able to hear it okay all the way through, and hopefully Stephen will come back, do some more discussing with us, have some more discussion on bullying, and he's got a lot of good information, accurate information on what, just breaking everything down in description. I just really enjoyed it. So again, Stephen, it was an honor to have you. And guys, I will let you know when he comes back. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Lounge with John. You can also find us on Facebook. I need to fix the name. For some reason, it's not letting me change that up yet. But it's facebook.com/Blind Nation Videos. Why it got stuck on that, I don't know, but we're fixing it. Anyways, the links and stuff will be down below as well if all goes well. And if you got any questions, you can leave them in the comments as well, and maybe Stephen will see them. If not, I'll get in touch with him and direct those questions to him, and so he can come back and maybe answer some questions for you. Next time we have him on, we're going to have a Q&A where you guys will get to ask the questions about the bullying and so on. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe. Definitely give us a thumbs up, and hopefully we can continue to do our best to raise awareness. And remember, guys, we don't got far to go. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. I can't wait. It's been a long road. It's been a rough road, but we're here, and we're going to keep on going. I'll talk to you guys here soon.